Alright fellas, here we are back in Pokemon Masters. This time we're going to be reviewing Sygna Suit Alt, I guess, Giovanni and Guzzlord. This character is going to be dropping for New Year's, because their date of drop is actually very different than a normal character. They're going to be dropping for exactly New Year's, midnight, for Japan time, which roughly converts to, for me, 10 a.m. Eastern or like 7 a.m., Pacific, convert from there, right? But this guy's going to be dropping, at a different time alongside the dev letter, so we're going to be getting a decent bit of information, right? Not really too much for the dev letter, probably, because we already got the update, but maybe they could say, oh, we're scheduling this for the next letter, and hopefully, right? Hopefully something interesting, or something good, or both, please. Anyway, Sygna Suit Giovanni and Guzzlord. This guy is great. Just looking at the kit, this guy's amazing. People are a little bit upset by his main gimmick, which, if you don't know, is kind of removing his own defensive buffs to provide effects to the team, or do damage, I guess, in some aspect. I think people are blowing it out of proportion on how, quote-unquote, detrimental that's going to be to him. I don't think it's going to be detrimental to him at all. I think it's really not that big of a deal, and he's going to be really strong and really good anyway. So again, this guy's dropping on, New Year's, leaving February 10th. This gives you a lot of time to pull for this guy. You'll be able to see the entire February update, and you will be pretty well into February before this guy actually leaves, right? So a month and 10 days, 40 days of activity is pretty damn good. So if you want to contemplate pulling this guy, well, you've got a lot of time to do so, right? Of course, he's a support field character with the dark typing, and you got, that field already gives him dark zone, so those dark type allies are going to be benefiting a lot, as with him as their probably best support. Pretty good, right? He's Johto. It's cool that they give characters different, theme skills or whatever, and Johto did need, kind of something new, especially considering this guy can work pretty well with Champion Silver, just being honest. I mean, he's got Johto Flag Bearer, Silver's got Pride for the physical buff. I mean, they can probably work pretty well together. Though I think this guy should have just been a Lola, honestly, because being Guzzlord and he's Rainbow Rocket Giovanni, it would have made sense to have been a Lola. But, I guess it's better than Kanto. I don't know. Either way, it doesn't really matter too much. Looking at his stats, this is one thing that draws a lot of attention. 1,100 HP. That's a lot of HP. And at maximum investment, if we look at it here, 150, 6-star EX roll, that's 1,300 health. And that doesn't even begin to include skill gear, which can increase HP by up to 160, I think. It's a little bit of HP, man. That's a lot of HP, especially if you get gradual healing on him. That's going to be a lot of tick healing. And that's something to really consider. He's got 356 attack. That's really good for a support, so he's going to have some sort of damage to him. He's got 288 in both defensive stats, which is not great on its own, but with investment, it does get a lot better. And 239 speed, which is also not great and not really going to get too much better upon investing, but that's okay. It's not really something he really terribly needs, honestly. He's got air with full investment, right? I mean, 150 6-star AX, over 400 attack, that's really good. 1,250 HP, 342 defenses. These are good stats. These are legitimately good defensive stats. Very friggin' HP, lord. And a good offensive stat for attack. And he's, again, with the field EX roll, plus 20 in those defenses, and plus 60 in that HP stat, and a little bit increase in the speed. 331 speed, that's relatively respectable, especially because in the grid he actually can buff speed for the team, which is obviously another good ability. So yeah, that's just something to consider. He's got good stats. Again, just pretty much all across the board with levels of investment. In terms of his moves, he's got Stockpile here, a 2-gauge move that buffs his defenses by 1. This is actually boosted by another passive he has, which is Giovanni's Greed, which whenever he uses a status move that raises only his stats, it raises the stats for all allies instead, so those Stockpile buffs for him will be going to all allies. And when an ally stat is raised by a status move used by the user's Pokemon, it is raised by 3 times the stat ranks. I initially read this or interpreted it as for allies specifically because it says ally, right? Which means that he would be getting +1 defenses and then allies would be getting +3, but that's not the case. He also gets the +3 defenses because if you just want to provide a little bit of evidence for why it's going to work that way, let's go ahead and look at double buffer of the same pretty much the same passive type. When an ally stat is raised by a status move used by the user's Pokemon, it's raised by double the stat ranks. Marnie's double buffer only buffs herself, bulk up. And, well, it gives her double stat buffs, meaning that this same passive same wording, is going to buff Giovanni's own defenses himself by +3, and again, all allies by +3 as well. So that's extremely quick defensive buffing, maxing out defenses in 2 turns. That's really, really good. It also increases sync move up next by all allies by 2 when the user's Pokemon uses a status move. Yeah, so not only has he got that amazing defensive ability, he's now got that sync buffing ability. That's going to be increasing the sync damage for all allies, and that's pretty strong. Not only is that going to be strong for obviously buffing any type of character, like think about the strongest nuker you know, and then think about them with +10 sync move up next, because, well, there you go, Giovanni, right? Especially if you want to consider running him with, again, Champion Silver, who has his Johto Circle, is going to be getting extra buffs from Giovanni being on the team, and then, well, the sync move up next to boost his already pretty good Striker nuke, right? That's just one example you could run with him. You don't have to run him with just Johto characters, but Silver is one that you could really consider just because of how good he is, right? And again, if you want to potentially run him with Dark types, because again, he's a Dark Zone setter, think about Yakumo, right? I mean, Yakumo's already able to buff his sync move up next himself, but Giovanni can buff it even quicker and more effectively. Think about Akari, right? Akari has no method of buffing sync move up next and already has a pretty good nuke as well, on top of, you know, setting the field alongside it. Well, think about it now with some sync move up next. Neo Champion Marnie, Sygna Suit Cyrus, wherever he is, where's Sygna Suit Cyrus? Sygna Suit Cyrus, right below Marnie. Sygna Suit Cyrus, right? I mean, where is he at? Bryson, man, think about all of these characters that could be enhanced a lot by that sync move up next, and also, you know, that Dark Zone, right? And again, this could also just apply to any general character, because he's got abilities that are very focused on just good general buffing, and he's not like trying to be super supportive upon one specific type. It's kind of like these Arc Suit sync pairs where Arc Suit Steven's really good at buffing steel types, but he's also happens to be the best support in the game just to do pretty much anything for anybody. So Giovanni kind of falls into that same role, and honestly a lot of supports do, right? Most of them, if anything. And this is just one of his abilities, or I guess like one of his abilities combined with one of his passes, right? So maxing out defenses, buffing sync move up next infinitely. This does not have to be a successful move. I want that to be known. This move does not have to be successful. This just has to be used. Anytime you use a status move, which will apply to Stockpile and Swallow here, but probably mostly going to be used as Stockpile. But still, +2 sync move up next for all allies. And not only that, that's buffing his sync damage too, off of that offensive stat. Like, obviously, you know, a sync from a support that has no multipliers, even with like 400 offense, it's going to be pretty decently, but it's not going to be like a nuke, right? With sync move up next, it's still not going to be like a really like a top tier tech nuke or anything like that, but it's going to do something. It's definitely going to be hitting for some good chip damage at the very least, and well, combine that with some actual damage dealing abilities he has, well, we're going to be looking pretty good. Let's continue on, I guess. He's got his 2 main moves to use here with Stockpile, which is Guzzling Swallow and Gorging Crunch. Guzzling Swallow is a 2-gauge 2-use move, which heals himself and allies. It's activated whenever he uses Stockpile, deactivated when used, restores the HP of all allies by 20% of the maximum. The more the user's defenses are raised, the more it also restores its HP, removes all the user's defensive increases. This is one of those abilities that people do not like about Giovanni here, is he's removing those defensive increases. I still don't think that's a big deal, because again, he can max his own defenses in 2 turns, and if you time this appropriately, there's obviously going to be plenty of windows to do that. You can time this to when the next attack will be a lower power move, so even though Giovanni obviously doesn't have any defensive buffs, he's not going to take too much damage anyway, especially when you consider how much goddamn HP he has. He can afford to take a little bit of extra damage relative to some other supports. And well, obviously this effect is really good. Restoring HP of all allies by 20%. The one big downside I can say with this guy is that this is his only real consistent method of being able to buff ally health, which is fine for the most part. He does have another method with gradual healing in the grid, Team Sync Regen here, but for the most part, this is really what he's dealing with. But that honestly just ends up kind of being okay because of what his main gimmick is, which again, we'll get into that in a bit here. So he's able to restore his HP the more his defenses are raised. I have been hearing that with +6 in both defenses, this is 60% HP restored back, which will also combine with the 20% HP he's giving to the whole team for 80% total HP restored to Giovanni whenever this move is used with he has max defenses. I'm going to guess that it scales at 5% per defensive increase, so mostly it's going to be in increments of either 30% HP back or 60% HP back, considering he's going to be having +3 in his defensive stats, right? Also, I want to say that these defensive stat removals from this move here are not going to be affected by Unbending or Stalwart or Impervious or anything like that, so stat debuffs will still happen, even if he has some method of stat debuff immunity, which I don't think he does, but anyway, just wanted to mention that. So yeah, great healing method here for, especially for himself, right? 80% healing for him is really good, and 20% for the rest of the team is, again, really, really strong too, or really solid. I'm not going to say 20% healing is like amazing for the team, but it's good healing for sure. Giovanni's also got another buddy move over here, which is a Gorging Crunch, which is a 2-gauge 100 power move, which is activated whenever he has his defenses at 6 stat ranks or higher, and it has a deactivation condition whenever his defenses are lower than that. So this counts both defensive stats as in a combination, so you can have +3 defense and +3 special defense. That counts as +6. This move will be activated. Math skills, right? Either way. So it's got the effects of having extra damage the more the defenses are raised for this move, lowers enemy defenses by 1, and removes the user's defensive increases. Same effect as this with the defensive increases, but again, you can time this around whenever an enemy's going to use a weaker move. Like the Annabelle Ultimate Battle, I'm pretty sure she uses Bulldoze intermediately, so if you time it around using Bulldoze, well, you're not going to be hit with too much damage, despite the fact that your defenses are, decreased, right? Or, well, at, a neutral state. So, I mean, he's going to be fine. Again, those defensive decreases are not going to affect him nearly as much as you think it would. And, well, this has got some real power behind it. I don't really like its utility, the defensive debuffs. I don't really think... I mean, they're good, obviously, but they're really slow, considering everything considered. Like, at best, you're going to be using Stockpile, Crunch, Stockpile, Crunch, right? And that's just not... That's not even considering, like, him having to actually have defenses for high-powered attacks, or, like, the fact you may want to use Swallow, or the Trainer move, or something like that, right? Or just, like, keep using Stockpile. I think those defensive decreases are really slow, and I mean, you're going to potentially get usage out of them for sure. But again, it's going to be quite slow for the most part. But it's got really good damage. Here, Sygna suit, Giovanni, also Gorging Crunch in 8 seems to be a 25% increase per defensive increase stat, rank increase, whatever, meaning it goes up to ×4, which means this can go up to 400 to 480 power, depending on what, your move level investment is, right? That's really good. That is really good damage, especially considering he's got, over a 400 attack stat with his EX roll, his EX and his, like, level 150 investments and all of that stuff. That's going to be hitting really hard. That's going to be pretty damn strong, especially, again, considering he's a support character, not meant to really do damage, but, well, he can do damage. So that's probably the best reason to actually use it, is if you actually need that damage buildup, right? And this could be also really good if you can stack physical moves up next on him by some method, which he does have in the grid, but again, we'll go into that later. And of course, you could also bring like a support, like the best one, Arc Suit Steven or something like that, to buff his physical moves up next. And then, well, you can combine this with its already high power off of his good offensive stat, potentially under Dark Zone, right? Because again, he sets it off the field with however many plus physical, boosted physical moves up next. And the fact that this is only damaging move means you can also stack that potentially up to +10, which is obviously going to be hitting pretty fucking hard. That's going to be pretty damn strong, right? Even without any multipliers, it's going to be pretty good. Again, I don't think it's like the effects of debuffing enemy defenses are great, but the power itself, that's given real Giovanni vibes. That's kind of his whole thing for the most part, just pure strength. So it's got its own useful effects, right? Just again, the fact that you kind of have to work around its being used, I guess. I mean, those defensive decreases are eventually gonna not be too great for him. If he starts having to take like high-powered attacks without defensive increases, that could hurt. But it's really this is mostly gonna end up being like a move that you're gonna be using, when you've got time, which may end up being a rare case. I don't know. I think it's got great usage in the Gauntlet though, because it is his main form of damage, and well, definitely can deal with the defensive decreases in that game mode, considering it's mostly gonna be him taking the damage in like a 1v1 state, I would say. Anyway, Trainer move, Endless Ambition, buffing all allies by offenses by 2, and applying Take Next All move effect to the user. This takes any AoE attack or sync move that is going to hit the whole team and lets Giovanni take the damage itself. We don't know how this works exactly, I don't think anyway, because this is the first time this effect's added. We're going to mostly know once it's actually added in the game, but this is probably why Giovanni's got such high HP, is because he's meant to take, basically, for the most part, 3 times the damage he normally would, because he's going to be taking, all allies damage. This is how he really safeguards allies, and probably why his healing is for the team is so low, and really is obviously focused on himself, is because he's going to be taking even more damage than he would normally as a support, because he's going to be not only taking AoE attacks like the whole team, but he's going to be taking the damage for his teammates, especially, that's going to be really good on those sync moves and whatnot. So this is obviously a really good effect. Other than that, he's got Buddy Move Restoration when using the Trainer move, restores 1 MP to the user's Trainer move when he uses the Buddy move. Yeah, that. So anytime he uses these buddy moves, this will restore NP to his trainer move, which allows you for higher offensive buffs. His offensive buffing ability, +2 and one use is not that great, but considering he's got NPR and it's used whenever he uses either of his buddy moves, well, there you go. You're getting up to +4, +6, basically infinitely for the most part, considering he's got, infinite usage of at least one of his buddy moves here. And also infinite take next all move effect, right? I think this is definitely a character that takes, I guess you could say, a little bit more brain power to use, or it's definitely a character that might make you think a little bit more about using. It's like, when is the enemy going to use an AoE attack? I've got to time him to have his defensive buffs up and use his take move next, what the fuck ever, use that effect whenever the enemy's about to use a sync move or an AoE attack. It kind of makes you think about that, and it's like, okay, I took all this damage, when is the next opportunity for me to be able to heal with Guzzling Swallow, right? I really do like this character's build for sure. He's got pretty much infinite take next all move effects. I don't know what you're going to call this to abbreviate it. Good lord, I'm not going to get that name down friggin' for a while. He's got good damage, obviously great defensive buffing ability, +6 in 2 turns, and also being able to buff defenses infinitely, right? If you get debuffed, well, who cares? Just buff them back. It's got the same efficacy as Venom Drench under Oleana has debuff, right? Same type of strength. It's just that fast, extremely fast for buffing on the defensive stats. And then on top of all of that, he's got Team Sharp Entry 30, +3 crit for the whole team. Great. And I also didn't even manage to go over Johto Flagbearer, where he's got himself damage reduction on regular moves and power up for all allies moves. So he's got himself even more damage mitigation, even under all of that HP and those very solid defensive stats. So yeah, that's just 1 out of 5 Giovanni. He's really good. He's really valuable to go for even just that one copy. He's got himself amazing healing at 1 out of 5, amazing defensive buffing ability, infinite sync move up next, which is amazing for offensive ability, crit if you're going to be trying to run him with characters that obviously don't really have great self-sufficiency, the attack and special attack for similar cases, right? And also that attack and crit helps directly buff his damage, because again, he can actually also do damage. Even just at 1 out of 5, he's got all the tools pretty much capable at his own disposal to actually do a lot of damage with the buddy move, Gorging Crunch, and his obviously good offensive stats, and even Johto Flagbearer to actually power up that move a little bit more too. Didn't even go over that. And again, if you invest the EX roll, well, you got potential Dark Zone under that as well. So yeah, Giovanni's a character you really are going to want to consider going for a 1 out of 5. Really good. I think he's going to be pretty good for the damage challenge as well. He doesn't seem to have any reactionary passives I can immediately look at. I think the Stockpile, trying to have its passives activate after it's used, might take up some time. But honestly, this guy might be a really good character potentially using the damage challenge, either to buff Aaron's ability to spam, or, being the spam character himself with that Stockpile, right? Because it's able to buff both defensive stats. If you don't, just to reader, if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, sometimes we get the no status condition stuff in the damage challenge, the ranked damage challenges, which we're going to be getting another one in January, so good example. And well, in order to counteract that, people have developed a strategy to use moves that buff allies, or, well, themselves, I guess, or debuff enemies that are able to buff two separate stats or more. And in this case, Stockpile is able to buff defense and special defense. That's 2. It can actually be spammed to the same efficiency as Sing under Paralysis or Thunder Wave, stuff like that, right? That it's got the same efficiency, and while this gives him good damage challenge prowess in that same effect, though again, I think it might have, I'm not sure, just thinking out loud, not actually 100% certain how it'll actually function in game. The sync move up next buffing might mess with that, and the buffing allies defenses might similarly buff with mess around with that. I'm not too sure, but that's otherwise still potentially good prowess for the damage challenge, right? Potentially good for the high score event. If we ever get another dark one, who's to say, right? He's gonna be good. He's a support. He's gonna be tanky, right? And if you don't invest the EX roll, well, he's not gonna be buffing the enemy, but even still, he'll be able to buff allies, right? Whatever. Great for ultimate battles, taking all the enemy sync move, the enemy high powered AoE attacks. That's his entire job. Especially if you target damage guard onto him and then use that take next all effect whenever the enemy uses that +10, like Nolan for example. If you give him damage guard or something from an ally and he takes Nolan's +10 earthquakes or whatever, +10 physical moves up next boosted earthquakes. Just as an example, that could be some really good tech in that ultimate battle specifically, and of course just generally good defensive utility for literally any other ultimate battle. Yeah, still really good, and he's going to be getting even better with dupes. Like, there's no doubt about that to me. And obviously, I don't have to state how good he's going to be in the Legendary Arena. With dupes, I'm quite confident he can get every single Legendary Arena. I'm actually quite confident in that answer. And even without them, he's going to be really good. He's very, very focused on preventing allies from taking damage, so what else is there to say? Okay, anyway, moving on to the grid, finally, we're like 20 minutes in. 1 out of 5, not really too much here. Flame proof, that's nice, preventing burn. I like that Moltres tech, and again, any stage that likes to apply burn. 2 out of 5, natural remedy, any status condition that isn't a burn, that could be helpful. Team Fierce Entry 2 and Team Grand Entry 2, if you need faster offensive buffs for whatever reason, you can use this here, but of course, I honestly don't think it's like that fantastic, of course. You're not going to probably need those super fast offensive buffs in a lot of cases, but it is there. Again, it is an option if you do really think he needs it. By the way, Battle Rally Prowess, super good for multiple stages because he can restore MP to his trainer move infinitely. So, just something to consider. Anyway, trainer move NPR as well if you, again, need those faster offensive buffs or you want to take next all move effect there. Sure, could be useful. Team Sync Regen, I think this is probably his best tile. Also, trainer move, applying gauge acceleration on his trainer move here. Team Fast Track as well. These are actually good tiles. Even if we can get rid of the Team Fierce Entry, Natural Remedy, and the Team Grand Entry, and the trainer move NPR here, I think these are his 3 best tiles, the 2 out of 5 and 4, and I think they're honestly really good. Gauge Acceleration and Team Fast Track. The Team Fast Track might not be great in the damage challenge because it's a reactionary passive. Could be bad. Combine it with dodge, might not be that bad. I mean, chase makes it work. But if you do want to work with gauge acceleration, spam stockpile, or of course just literally any setup that's going to need like gauge management, well, Team Fast Track and the gauge acceleration on the trainer move here are going to be really helpful, especially because again, he's got infinite uses of the trainer move as long as you're able to use the buddy moves here, however long that may take or whenever you are able to do that, depending on what the fight is. He's still got infinite gauge acceleration as long as you can actually manage to get that trainer move down, right? So his gauge managing ability, despite the fact that his speed stat's not like fantastic, it's not great, it's not bad, right? Like 331 speed is not terrible. It's not like it's 200 or something like that. But it's not like fantastic, especially under no buffs. But, well, 2 out of 5 gives him those buffs. The team speed buffs, really good. Team gauge acceleration, also very good. So that is his method of buffing gauge. And, well, people might end up finding the need for that because if you're going to be using him with other characters and they can't manage their gauge well either, you're probably going to end up noticing that pretty easily, right? But, well, thankfully, gauge managing abilities at 2 out of 5 actually gives his 2 out of 5 good value. And Team Sync Regen, this gives the team gradual healing. This makes it so his method of buffing ally healing, or applying ally healing rather, is not just limited to his buddy move here under its 2 uses with 20% HP only. It is now, on his sync move where he gives the whole team team gradual healing. This is also extremely good for himself, considering the only thing he's going to be using for the most part are regular Pokemon moves, buddy moves and stockpile, or of course, the one use of the trainer move, right, which doesn't get gradual healing applied whenever you use it, but, it's only one use anyway, and then you're going to go back to using, stockpile, swallow, or crunch. Well, he's getting, basically, I'm pretty sure, it's either 7% or 10%, I forget exactly what gradual healing is, someone can bother to correct me in the comments, or, verify or whatever. That's, gradual healing heals you it's a percentage of healing. It's not a fixed amount of HP, it is a percentage. Meaning Giovanni is going to be restoring like 130 HP, again, before skill gears or anything like that, or type gears or whatever. 130 HP every tick of gradual healing. That is a lot more than a lot of other supports. Like, just for example, if we want to look at Neo Champion Blue, another one of, a great defensive support. 871 health. This means Blue's healing 87 HP per use of gradual healing. Giovanni's healing 50 more health just for himself. And especially with how many moves he's taken, that's a lot of HP recovery. That is a ton. So if you think his defensive stats are like, oh, these defensive stats are like potentially lower than normal because, we've had supports with 400 plus defenses, right? Well, Giovanni's HP combined with that tick healing every single turn with gradual healing, again, 130 HP. I don't think people realize how much HP that is. For a lot of other supports, that is not 10% of their HP, that's like 20% of their HP, or something like that. Like, that's pretty realistic to think about, right? It's like 15 to 20% of their HP, that's a lot of healing Giovanni's giving himself. That is a lot of HP back. So, that is a lot to consider whenever this guy is on, as your support, how much HP he's actually recovering just every single turn, and that's not even considering the amount of HP he recovers off of Swallow. which is why I kind of like to wank this passive off a lot, because it is just that strong. I love seeing that off of how much HP he's got. And again, that's good for allies as well, considering he can only heal allies by 20% HP, even though he is taking a lot of the damage with that take next all move effect here, or he's intended to at the very least. Well, that gradual healing is still going to help with any stray AoE attacks or anything, any damage that the team may take. So very good 2 out of 5 here. I really do like it. This is actually pretty worth investing in, I would say. 3 out of 5, he's got Vigilance, Trainer Move, Team Physical moves up next, Infliction Freebie, Team Smart Command, First Sync Move, Buddy Move Restoration, Guarded Entry 3, Endurance, Stockpile, Team Sync up 3. Okay. So, I don't think the Guarded Entry 3 or Endurance are that fantastic for him. He's got so much HP. If he gets down to Endurance, you're probably going to lose anyway, just saying. But, I mean, this could potentially save you, right? You take a super OP, high-powered attack, whatever, somehow hits him down to 1% HP. He could use a crunch, KO the enemy, boom, they're gone. Or, your allies can KO, whatever, right? It could save you. It could. I'm not going to say it will. It could. There's these chances. But for the most part, I don't think Endurance is really going to do that much for him. I could be wrong, though. I could very well be wrong. Someone can prove me wrong for sure. Guard Entry 3, I also don't think it's that helpful of a tile, mostly because of how much energy it takes to get. Like, if it was a tile that you could get, like, right here or something, instead of the, like, special defense tile, just for example, I think it'd be a lot more valuable to go for, just because it's right there, and, it could start you off early in a fight, with, potentially max defenses, because you're going to have the Guarded Entry plus the Stockpile. That's going to be plus 6 defense, literally turn 1 for him. That could be good. But I think just because of how high it is over here, I don't think it's that worth going for. Maybe if you're going for Team Fast Track, right, if you need that gauge, maybe it could be worth picking up, but again, still don't think so. It's probably mostly there just so people could have, like, oh, I've got plus 6 defenses, I can use the Buddy Move, get those defenses down -1 at, turn 1. So I could see, again, that's the kind of the intent they might be going for with this, but I also don't think simultaneously it's really that good to go for, especially because, again, he can also buff his defenses infinitely. He's probably going to be fine. Again, Guard Entry, don't think it's that great of a passive. So this whole corner, mostly kind of avoid, other than the Team Fast Track, maybe, right? The Team Physical moves up next, and the Team Smart Command. This buffs the physical or special moves next, depending on which one you pick up, whenever he uses his Trainer Move. Again, you could stack this with up with the usage of his Crunch, and potentially give him multiple instances of physical moves up next, depending on how it goes about it. But of course, the fact it's tied to the Trainer Move means, well, you're going to use the Trainer Move, then you're going to have to use the Buddy Move to restore the Trainer Move, which, might end up being Crunch, so you're using Crunch with still, though, +1 physical moves up next, boosted Crunch, which is, like, 200, I think 200 power minimum, wouldn't it be? 200 minimum? Yeah, I think so. 200 power minimum, because it's of the defensive increases, right? And, 400 power maximum. It's still going to be pretty good. That's still going to be really strong, obviously, under +1 physical moves up next, and that's going to be good for him, and again, also good for the team. Him also buffing the special moves up next, which does not directly buff him, still means it's a good effect for all of the potential allies he's buffing that are special, right? I mean, we've got plenty of special dark types, notably, Champion Marnie, right? Obviously the big one here, Summer, and I guess Bryson Man. Those are Bryson Man and Champion Marnie are probably the two big ones to single out in terms of dark characters that benefit under Giovanni, that would also benefit from those special moves next. And of course, any general character you're going to bring with him, whoever it may be, any character that could just use all of his good traits. If they are special, well, they're going to buy those special moves up next. Only problem with that, I think, is the fact that, it might take a while, or, like, it might be a little bit inconsistent in the special moves up next, or physical moves up next buffing department, whichever one you pick up, or both, whatever, doesn't matter. I think it might be a little bit slow, because you have to use a Trainer Move, stockpile up to use a Buddy Move, and then use it again, right? And you also have to consider, well, the other effects of using your Buddy Moves. You lose your defensive increases, or, you just don't want to do that. Maybe it's really just going to be completely dependent upon pretty much that. So again, I think that, like, this might suffer similarly to how the defensive debuffs from Crunch suffer, where they're just kind of slow to actually start stacking up, right? If this was like Arc Suit Steven, where he does it every single turn pretty much for free, just for existing for the most part, then it would be a decent bit different, but that's not necessarily the case, right? Still though, not bad tiles. You could definitely make them work. First Sync Move, Restore, Buddy Move, MP1. This is for Guzzling Swallow, right? If you need, he can restore his HP by up to 80% in 2 instances with his usage of this Swallow off of, again, 1,300 HP. If you need another usage of that healing, holy shit, whatever you're fighting, Jesus Christ. I mean, you're probably going to want this anyway. Well, there you go. I mean, you've got yourself another instance of that swallow. That could be really helpful. Very, very nice. Yeah, okay. So, moving on next, he's got Vigilance. I mean, if you want to run a different lucky skill, like Head Start 1, Adrenaline 1, Status Immunity, or Gauge Refresh, or fucking Defense Crush, Mind Games, there's a lot of good lucky skills he could potentially benefit under. If you want to still have that crit protection, Vigilance is right there. Nice. Infliction Freebie 9. Well, this is what gives him Stockpile spam in the damage challenge, potentially. Again, I'm not sure how it's going to do with how his different passes activate and whatnot. I'm not going to be sure how effective it is, but he's got the tools for it. It could potentially be really good, a potentially good damage challenge character. And of course, good for Gauge as well, right? Really good for Gauge if you don't want to pick up the Gauge acceleration tiles or the team fast track or anything, and you want him to just manage his own Gauge by using Infliction or Infliction Freebie. That's perfectly fine too. I mean, that's a good method of buffing Gauge for that and making it so he's good at it. And then Stockpile Team Sync Move Boost 1-9. This changes his Sync Move up next here from +2 whenever using a status move to pretty much +3. This does also apply on Swallow, of course, but this only applies on Stockpile, but really that's just a minor difference, not really anything that's really worth mentioning too much. This gives him +3. This means he can get to +9 in 3 turns, +10 in 4 turns, whereas otherwise it would take 5 turns with this of using Stockpile or Swallow in order to max out the Sync Move up next for an ally. Which, of course, even maxing it out doesn't even matter, considering, your allies are going to use a sync move every 3 turns for the most part. If you're being effective with your rotations, game mode dependent, but still, doesn't matter too much. Either way, this is going to be getting sync move up next. That's really strong. Yeah, obviously, I mean, that's faster. Do I think he necessarily needs this passive? No, probably not. He's definitely already really good at buffing sync move up next as it is. Probably not necessary. But if you want that extra damage, that extra fast, there you go, buddy. There you go. Giovanni's got it. And that's obviously going to be good for buffing his own damage or his own sync damage potentially, at least on that first sync maybe, when you're using him. Or again, Legendary Arena solos could be good too, but he's also really effective on his own at buffing his sync move up next, so he's probably going to be fine. I honestly could see this guy just being really good for spamming Stockpile with Infliction Freebie in Legendary Arenas, no doubt. Even just considering this 3/5 kit, this is a pretty good 3/5, honestly. I think that the best ones he's gaining are obviously going to be the Buddy Move NPR and the Stockpile Team Sync Move up next and the Infliction Freebie. I could also see, again, really solid usage in these Train a Move, buffing the moves up next here, if you could find good usage in that, because again, it requires usage of the Train a Move, which is going to be buffing ally offenses, but also giving him the Take Next All effect, and also just depends upon how often you're going to be using the Train a Move, because again, you've got to restore the MP to it, you got to use it, and then you've got to go through that cycle again. So maybe a few turns every other turn, but you're giving allies moves up next. Not a bad 3/5, definitely. This guy's got great value at every single investment level. 1/5 is good, 2/5 is good with that Gauge buffing and the Team Sync regen, and then 3/5 is good for buffing the offenses even further and even more Gauge managing abilities. Yeah, this guy's got a great great 3/5, 2/5, 1/5. Does not have a great 4/5 because now we're giving Master Fairs, fair tiles. I think the only good thing about this tile is that it's free, and this basically allows you to get down to this for lower energy. But that's really it. Debut Dark Zone's not good. This is not even good really with extension. It's like okay at best. You're gonna be using his sync move probably first anyway because you're gonna be setting Dark Zone under it. If you have him with like a support EX. If you're using him with like a character that's got support EX, like for example Champion Marnie or something, you could probably use Champion Marnie's nuke first and then save the Dark Zone for later in the fight, have Giovanni nuke second. There could be used for that if you've got Dark Zone extension to have this ability, but for the most part, I don't think it's going to be that good. I don't think Debut Dark Zone is really that good of a tile. I don't see much usage in it. Debut Weather's different because that could potentially deactivate enemy gimmicks like Annabelle, Moltres, Nita, Argenta, right? You could deactivate enemy gimmicks with Debut Weather, but Zone, not really. Maybe it's decent for some ultimate battles, but for the most part, any character that wants to set a zone or can set a zone to start doing damage is going to be doing it probably post, support EX sync move, which in his case is already setting zone. So overlap, I don't think it's that great of a tile. Maybe I'm wrong. Still. 5/5, great tile, Stockpile Team Strengthening, status 9. Giving all allies physical and special moves increases by 1. This is what they want you to go for. They want you to go 5/5 for this guy. This also, above all else, costs 0 energy, which means you can pick this up, then pick up either Gauge Acceleration or the Sync tile, and be up here to this tile, or whatever the hell it may be. Well, they just want you to pick up this tile. again, it's free, and in that same aspect, you're going to be getting the debut Dark Zone for free. So even if you don't find much usage in this tile, it's free. It means you don't have to spend extra energy to get to these tiles, so you could potentially be saving precious grid energy that way. And well, here you go, Giovanni. It's a great tile. This is actually his very, very consistent way of buffing physical and special moves next for the whole team. Literally similar to that of Arc Suit Steven. That same level of efficiency of buffing moves up next. And obviously, there's pretty much no character that can do that for special moves up next. And well, now Giovanni actually fits that niche. Yeah. This guy's stupid. He's able to buff defenses extremely well. He's got amazing defensive prowess with that take move next effect and his amazing HP and his amazing HP restoration for himself. Solid HP restoration for the team. Amazing offensive prowess buffing with physical moves up next, special moves up next, and sync move up next. The best efficiency we've seen in pretty much all three. Only beat out in physical moves up next by Arc Suit Steven, but he's the best sync move up next and special moves up next buffing support pretty much in the game, I would say, at least anyway, because of this strengthening status tile on Stockpile, which is the move he's going to be using 80% of the time anyway. And also, just to kind of sell it, +3 crit and infinite offensive buffing off of his trainer move here. This guy's great. One of the best supports to go for, 100%. It's going to be real damn tough for people to choose between this guy and Champion Blue. I honestly think so. Yeah, so if you are a new player, and even if you've got Champion Blue, and you've got, Kanto Trio or Leon, or, these top-tier characters, I still probably recommend you go for Giovanni. This guy's probably not going to be aged out or anything like that anytime soon. It's like Sygna Gladion came out as bait for the 2.5 anniversary, but still ended up basically being of the same quality of a 4.5 anniversary, I'm sorry. Sygna Gladion, again, came out at 4.5 anniversary pre-release, basically, and ended up still being nearly as strong, and you could probably potentially say stronger than those actual releases. And well, I think Giovanni's in a similar case where he's going to be really good, and I don't think he's going to be necessarily completely outclassed or completely power crept by any of the anniversary characters this year, despite being a Master Fair and not even an Arc Fair. He's nuts. I really do think so. He could easily be the second best support in the game behind Arc Suit Steven. I think it's that good. He might not be better than Champion Blue, but I really do think he could be too. I'm honestly really on the fence about it. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Arc Suit Giovanni. No, Arc Suit, yeah, okay. Sygna Suit Giovanni. May as well be Arc Suit at this point. Good lord. And Guzzlord. I'm going for him 100%. On the moment he releases, I'm going to be recording the video, putting that up, all that good stuff. So be there or be square, as long as, something big doesn't come up. Which it probably will, my luck. Whatever. Yeah, I'll see y'all later. Hope y'all enjoyed. Go look on your summons for Sygna Suit Giovanni. Again, I recommend you go for this guy. I really do. He's that good. He's really strong. And yeah, I'll see y'all later. Peace.